وتستخرجوا منه حلية تلبسونها وترى الفلك مواخر فيه ولتبتغوا من فضله ولعلكم تشكرون وألقى في الأرض رواسي أن تميد بكم وأنهارا وسبلا لعلكم تهتدون. اللهم صل على محمد وعلى آل محمد كما صليت على إبراهيم وعلى آل إبراهيم إنك حميد مجيد. اللهم بارك على محمد وعلى آل محمد كما باركت على إبراهيم وعلى آل إبراهيم إنك حميد مجيد.
صدق الله العظيم.
Ladies and gentlemen, we now present to you Nakara, the Call of Peace, an instrumental video that embodies the vibrant spirit of Pakistan. This captivating visual journey showcased the combat expertise of our Navy, the majestic beauty of our landscape, and the historic collaboration of navies from around the world at Exercise Aman. Let's experience the symphony of strength and harmony and celebrate our unity, resilience, and naval excellence. distinguished speakers and experts, honorable guests, Assalamu alaikum and a very good morning. I'm Sana Fatima, Research Assistant of National Institute of Maritime Affairs. Welcome you all to the second day of AMAN Dialogue 2025, the theme of Secure Seas, Prosperous Future. I request the worthy members for Session 3 to proceed to the stage. The Session 3 is focused on the theme of maritime cooperation and will be moderated by Pakistan's renowned arbitration lawyer, Barrister Nudrat Bayan Majid. She has been practicing law for over 2 decades in the courts of England and Pakistan. She has undertaken extensive legislative drafting, has taught in many countries, and has advised various governments on law reforms. I would now request the barrister to proceed with the session activities.
If I may. Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. In the name of God Almighty, the Merciful, the Infinitely Good. Chief of Naval Staff of the Islamic Republic of Pakistan, Admiral Naveed Ashraf, Chief of Navies, Coast Guards, senior representatives of international organizations, maritime research centers, senators, scholars, soldiers, ladies and gentlemen. Assalamu alaikum jami'ukum. Peace be on all of you and a very good morning. We begin proceedings of day 2 of the AMAN Dialogue 2025. As I sat yesterday listening to the many erudite, insightful observations on the challenges faced by the global maritime framework, I was reminded of 2 historical personalities very relevant to this dialogue. The first of them was a 12th century defining scholar of Islam called Al-Ghazali. Born in Iran, but transcended geographical boundaries to be called the proof of Islam. Al-Ghazali said, for any dialogue, any discussion to succeed, all the parties have to be searching for truth, not triumph. If we put Al-Ghazali's instruction into the context of maritime law and enforcement, and let us recognize here for a moment that any discussion of maritime cooperation is underpinned by a law. So if we are all going to act on this instruction and we are seeking truth in this dialogue, then it will not take long for us to realize that there is no one truth. The issues facing small island state like Sri Lanka with limited resources, isolation, dependency on tourism, as very aptly explained by Rear Admiral Shara yesterday, are very different from the interests of the Bab al-Mandab with issues of piracy. The issues of demography and geopolitics faced by Pakistan with a population of over 240 million are very different from the issues faced by a country like Oman with a population of 5.5 million. Equally, as we heard yesterday, approaches to the role played by navies is very different. Brigadier Abraham of Kenya told us how their navy's role in planting 1.5 billion trees to afforestate mangroves. But then there was the equally valid and competing view that the role of a navy is to protect and secure its coastal boundaries and engage in defensive or offensive activities and not macroeconomics or environmental conservation in general. So the question is, where are the boundaries? More specifically, where are the fault lines of maritime cooperation in an ocean region with vastly contrasting politics, economies, and consequently interests? But the answer is with the one who devised the proposition. Al-Ghazali said, if you cannot agree on a single truth, then do what we are instructed in the Quran to do, which is come to a common word between you and us. In the chapter titled Imran, the father of the Virgin Mary, whom we call Sayyidatna Maryam, the verse says, O people of the scripture, come to a word that is equitable between us and you. And it was poignant that yesterday, the countryman of Al-Ghazali, Rear Admiral Shahram, who said the same thing when he proposed that the navies of the Indian Ocean region should first develop a joint language, the common word. This was echoed by Vice Admiral Angus of Canada and Rear Admiral Javed of Pakistan when they spoke of collaborative efforts and the change from state-centric to human-centric and trust building rather than capacity building. And here I'll pause for a moment. This human-centric approach was laid down by one Swiss businessman in 1859 during the war between Austria and France. He was passing through and saw the wounded on the battlefield and was so shocked that he asked the general in command if all the doctors who were prisoners could be released so that the wounded could be tended. That human-centric approach was the foundation of the Geneva Conventions that underpins a lot of maritime law today. And the common word is soft power. Navies of the Indian Ocean region can play a very important role in developing this soft power alongside the hard power to continue the very valuable engagement through dialogue on maritime cooperation. As the Chief of Naval Staff of Pakistan said, our plan should be to radiate credible deterrence, not to engage in an arms race. So for maritime cooperation, the joint language or the common word are issues which are universal. And those universal issues were touched upon yesterday, like piracy, like terrorism, like human trafficking, like climate change. And that universal issue brings me to the second historical person who also had universal value. That was the man who laid the foundation of all international law, not just maritime. Ironically, all of international law really started from a maritime dispute in 1600s when the Dutch captured a Portuguese ship, the Santa Catarina, off the coast of Singapore. The Dutch were at war with Portugal, but the seizure was controversial because it occurred far from European waters, raising questions about the legality of such actions on the high seas. The Dutch instructed a lawyer by the name of Hugo Grotius, who argued that seizure was lawful under the principles of just war. That defense led to the doctrine of mare liberum, in other words, the free sea. Grotius argued that no nation could claim exclusive control over international waters, and the Dutch had a right to seize the Portuguese ship in self-defense, given the Portuguese monopoly on trade routes. Grotius' arguments became foundational for the development of international maritime law and the concept of freedom of seas, which today remains a key principle in modern international law. So when yesterday, Dr. Huma Bakai said that the international world order was fractured and that she saw the combative role of navies to increase in the future, despite the opening of sea lanes, despite maritime cooperation, she is right. He is right because it is bound to be fractured, because the basis of the entire edifice of maritime law stands on something that was not in search for truth, it was in search for triumph. As Dr. Christian touched upon this yesterday when he said, the law is not straightforward. Brigadier Abraham of Kenya said, puncturing of the world order means puncturing of the law of the sea as it exists. And that brings us back to the common word and the importance of continuing a dialogue. Today, ladies and gentlemen, I have a stellar group of speakers, and may I say, it did not take me as long to compose and think of my initial remarks as it did to go through their CVs and abbreviate them. They have such magnificent careers and experience. I found it very difficult to actually synthesize and abbreviate, and I wanted to go through their entire CVs, but then we would be here for the rest of the day. So I will start with my first speaker for today, Commodore Ben Aldous, Deputy Commander, CMF. Commodore Aldous joined the Navy as a warfare officer in 1998 with a law degree from Southampton University, England. Following initial training at Dartmouth, his early career spanned Officer of the Watch and Navigator appointments in MCMVs, frigates, and destroyers, including operations off Iraq in 2003. He then did multiple naval courses before assuming command of the Type 23 frigate, HMS Iron Duke, which was assigned to the Standing NATO Maritime Group 2 in 2016, and spent 6 months operating off with the group off Norway and in the Baltic Sea during a fascinating time of Russian activity. With his sea time complete, Commodore Aldous took up the role of assistant to the Second Sea Lord and acted as principal advisor to the Royal Navy's 3-star lead for personnel, training, capability, infrastructure, and finance. Very interestingly, he moved to HMS Collingwood to assume the role of officer commanding warfare training, where he developed a passion for adult learning and was recognized with a senior fellowship of the Higher Education Academy. Commodore Aldous conducted 2 operational tours of Bahrain before taking up his last position in the United Kingdom Ministry of Defense, orchestrating strategic efforts in support of MOD's Russia campaign team. His latest position is command of the UK Maritime component in the Middle East since January 2025. Commodore Aldous.
Chief Naval Staff, Admirals, fellow Admirals, ladies and gentlemen, Assalamu alaikum, good morning. Firstly, thank you for the opportunity to speak to you today on the subject of collective and collaborative maritime cooperation. As we just heard, I'm the United Kingdom's Maritime Component Commander, but I also double hat as the Deputy Commander of the Combined Maritime Forces, the CMF, in Bahrain. It's an honour to address you today, and I thank the Pakistan Navy for bringing together such a distinguished group of experts and leaders in this field. Also, to the Pakistan Navy and to the Governor, thank you very much for the excellent meal, fireworks and presentation last night. As we have discussed, the threats to maritime security are diverse and constantly evolving. Piracy, once a scourge of the high seas, has morphed into new forms, with organised crime syndicates engaging in armed robbery, kidnapping, and illicit weapon smuggling. Illegal, unreported, and unregulated fishing depletes stocks, undermines sustainable fisheries management, and threatens food security for millions. And non-nation states now threaten all of us in the maritime space. The maritime domain itself, once heralded as the global commons, free for all to use, is progressively shifting towards a militarized space, with rising tensions and competition between states. In the face of these multifaceted challenges, no single nation or organization can effectively safeguard its maritime interests in isolation. Sea command seems almost like a concept consigned to the history books of the 1600s. The interconnected nature of the maritime domain necessitates a collective and collaborative approach to the pool resources, share information, and harmonise efforts. Collaborative maritime security involves a wide range of stakeholders, including governments, navies and coast guards, law enforcement agencies, industry and civil society. The collective and cooperative response is essential for a comprehensive, effective response. By working together, we can identify a number of benefits derived from a collective and collaborative approach. Enhanced maritime domain awareness, sharing information and intelligence to better understand the maritime environment, identify threats, and track suspicious activities. In turn, this leads to more effective prevention and response efforts. Improved law enforcement capability. Joint patrols, training exercises, and capacity building can strengthen the ability of nations to combat maritime crime, enforce fisheries regulations, and protect marine resources. Promoting maritime safety. Cooperation on search and rescue operations, navigational safety, and maritime traffic management can reduce accidents and save lives at sea. And finally, fostering regional stability. Collective maritime security can build trust, as we've just heard, and confidence among nations, reducing tensions and promoting peaceful resolutions of disputes. So, why have I been asked today to talk about collective and collaborative maritime cooperation? Well, as the Deputy Commander of the CMF, I oversee the largest maritime partnership in the world. Consisting of 46 nations, CMF has a remit to promote security and stability. It operates across 3 million square miles of international waters, encompassing the world's most important shipping lanes. It's an enduring coalition of willing nations aligned with a common sense of purpose, a common word, a joint language, to uphold the rules-based international order. CMF delivers maritime security operations to increase stability in the Gulf and Indian Ocean region. And of course, I don't have to remind our hosts here of the benefits of CMF membership, as Pakistan is amongst the highest contributors to the CMF, accumulating more task force commanders than any nation. So I want to offer a few thoughts on how organisations such as the CMF can serve as a platform for maritime cooperation to address the array of traditional and non-traditional threats facing this vital maritime region. I will also highlight the interconnected risks posed by strategic competition, piracy, narcotics trafficking, human smuggling, and the rise of crude systems. The increasing military presence of global powers in the region has intensified the potential for conflicts, both territorial and resource-based. In particular, the rise of the use of force at sea, whether in response to territorial disputes or as part of broader strategic objectives, remains a real concern. Collaboration is vital to easing the pressure of political tension. CMF bases its mandate on common ground, on tackling challenges that we all agree on. That may be contributing to counter-narcotics, nation sending staff officers to our base in Bahrain, enhancing communications through joint patrols, and encouraging regional dialogue between neighbours. This is achieved through information sharing, interoperability, and enhancing regional capabilities to police their own territorial waters and exclusive economic zones. The CMF continues to play a key role in facilitating multilateral dialogues, joint naval exercises, and shared maritime intelligence, all of which help reduce the risk of misunderstandings and escalation. Piracy itself remains a serious concern in the Indian Ocean, from Somalia in the west to the Malacca Strait in the east. While significant progress has been made in combating piracy, the threat has not been fully eradicated. Piracy activity off the coast of Somalia and the Gulf of Aden, although lower than a decade ago, has actually increased over the last 2 years. The CMF's mission in combating piracy has been instrumental in curbing such activities by providing a unified naval presence in these high-risk areas and through the coordination of multinational effects. The CMF has contributed significantly to the reduced number of pirate attacks, a fact not lost on our hosts who currently command the CMF anti-piracy effort CTF 151. However, the challenge persists. The underlying causes of piracy, poverty, instability, and weak governance remain, and as such, a multi-domain fused approach is required. This involves not just military presence, but also addressing the root cause through development aid, governance reforms, and regional capacity building. Through collaborative work with organisations such as the United Nations Institutes for Training and Research, the EU's Naval Force, the Djibouti Code of Conduct, and the UN Office on Drugs and Crime, to name but a few, CMF are supporting those who are working to address economic instability and the root causes of piracy. The Indian Ocean also serves as a critical transit route for illicit activities such as narcotic trafficking and human smuggling. The flow of illegal drugs, particularly heroin from Afghanistan and synthetic drugs from Southeast Asia, is a major threat to the region and beyond. These illicit activities not only destabilise individual nations, but also contribute to organised crime and terrorism. The CMF's work in combating drug trafficking led by CTF 150, through coordinated interdiction operations, partnership with organisations such as the UNODC, regional law enforcement agencies and intelligence sharing, is vital to maintaining the security of the region. Similarly, addressing human smuggling requires robust law enforcement cooperation. Regional partners can work together, facilitated by organisations like the CMF, to enforce international standards and provide humanitarian support to those in need. As technology continues to evolve, so do the challenges faced in the maritime domain. The rise of uncrewed systems, autonomous drones, unmanned aerial vehicles, and uncrewed surface vehicles present both opportunities and threats for maritime security. Integrating uncrewed systems into the operational structure could help enhance surveillance, reconnaissance, and intelligence gathering. However, we must ensure that new technologies are employed responsibly and ethically, and be prepared for their use against us by non-state actors or even competing nations. Another emerging threat is the growing risk of cyber attacks against maritime infrastructure. Ports, shipping companies, and naval assets are increasingly reliant on digital systems for navigation, logistics, and communication. A cyber attack targeting critical maritime infrastructure could cause significant disruptions to global trade, compromise safety, and lead to environmental disasters. Collaborative efforts to share best practices, including with industry, development of secure communications networks, establishment of protocols for dealing with cyber incidents, all of these are vital to safeguarding the maritime domain. So the challenges faced by the region are vast and complex, from strategic competition, piracy to narcotics trafficking, and the rise of cyber and technological threats. However, these challenges also present an unprecedented opportunity for collective action and international cooperation. The CMF, as the largest maritime coalition in the world, is not a legal entity, and all operations conducted with a CMF context are conducted under national mandates, but in support of CMF's aim. What CMF provides is the framework through which like-minded nations can work together to uphold the rules-based international order. CMF has a proven model of cooperation. With instant access to vital information, this could be shared between nations and partner organisations to ensure more decisive decision-making. We have shown that effective maritime security is achievable when nations work together towards common goals, by continuing to build partnerships, share intelligence, conduct joint operations, and address security concerns. The CMF continues to play a vital role in ensuring the security, stability and sustainability of the region, to radiate, as you say, Barrister, credible deterrence with a common language. And as I heard so many speakers say yesterday, in the face of these threats, we must recognise that no single nation, no single entity can tackle these challenges alone. Only through collaboration between governments, international organisations, industry and local communities, and including through forums such as this and through the CMF, ensure that the region and its waters remain secure and a prosperous maritime space for the benefit of all. Thank you.
Thank you very much. That was very insightful. Thank you for sharing all the good work being done by CMF in this region. Our next speaker is Admiral Muhammad Zakaullah, former Chief of Naval Staff of Pakistan. Admiral Zakaullah comes from the province of Punjab in Pakistan and graduated at the top of his class after joining Pakistan Navy in 1975 and was conferred with the coveted Sword of Honor and awarded the Chief of Naval Staff Gold Medal at his graduation. Sub-Lieutenant Zakaullah gained commission in the operations branch and was sent to the United Kingdom for his training and education later in his career. He did 2 masters, an MA in defense studies and an MS in war studies, one from England, one from Pakistan. He has served on many command positions and staff positions, which is a long, glittering list of very able and active service. In 2014, Vice Admiral Zakaullah was promoted to 4-star Admiral. He became the first naval chief in the history of Pakistan with a Sword of Honor. He is a keen yachtsman and represented Pakistan at numerous international events, including the 1984 Olympics and the Asian Games of 1986 and 1990. I now call upon Admiral Zakaullah to please share his observations and experience with us. Thank you.
Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Chiefs of Navies, Commanders of Coast Guards, esteemed guests, ladies and gentlemen, Assalamu alaikum and good morning. Ma'am, thank you for a very liberal introduction. First of all, ladies and gentlemen, I would like to congratulate the organizers for initiating AMAN Dialogue. It is indeed a matter of honor and pleasure to be part of this activity. I shall be speaking on the subject of region-centric maritime constructs. But before I do that, I would like to share a small personal experience. In 2004, as defense attaché in Qatar, I called on Commander Qatar Amiri Naval Forces. We had done sub-lieutenant courses together here in Manoda in 1978. In 26 years that elapsed between, we had not met each other. And during this time, he had not changed much, but I had put on a gray beard. I could recognize him, but had difficulty. He remarked, if brothers don't meet for a long time, they become strangers. He was very right. And conversely, if we meet often and have dialogue, then strangers can develop friendship. Coming to the topic, region-centric maritime constructs refer to frameworks, strategies, or systems designed to address maritime challenges and promote cooperation, security, and development within a specific geographic region. These constructs focus on the particular maritime interests, priorities, and dynamics of the region rather than adopting a global or universal approach. Such constructs are best explained by regional security complex theory, which states that international security should be examined from regional perspective. It identifies a regional security complex as a group of states whose national security concerns are so closely linked that they cannot be addressed independently. The classical application of this theory is in the maritime domain, which is pervasive with transnational threats, shared interests, and a workable level of security interdependence amongst neighbors. Let us see the applicability of regional complex theory in the Indian Ocean. It is unlike the 2 other great oceans, Atlantic and Pacific, as a vast majority of its trade is extra-regional, while its littorals by far have the world's largest energy reservoirs. A number of extra-regional powers also have strategic stakes in the Indian Ocean. The ocean's importance also stems from the connectivity it has traditionally provided to its east and west through some of the world's vital and strategically important sea lines of communication. Ladies and gentlemen, while being rich in resources and critical artery for global trade, Indian Ocean region is also marked by instability, conflicts, and episodes of violence. In the post 9/11 era, the dynamics of this region have changed significantly. Classically, from this perspective, the Indian Ocean is too large and too diverse to be classified as a regional security complex. However, when one factors in the maritime dimension that is transnational in nature, the region has been confronting significant threats and challenges such as piracy, maritime, terrorism, narco and arms smuggling. These challenges not only threaten the safety and security of maritime environment, but also pose broader social and economic implications. Furthermore, the nature of conflict in the Indian Ocean is evolving rapidly, as already mentioned by my predecessor here. Armed drones and other unmanned platforms are increasingly being deployed against merchant ships navigating these critical waters. These maritime challenges are common to all stakeholders. Hence, Indian Ocean can be termed as a maritime security complex, albeit too large. This notwithstanding, a better description can be made through collaborative maritime security approach rather than a regional security complex, where interests of regional stakeholders and extra-regional actors are intertwined in a complex security dependence. So discussions surrounding security at sea often lead to the logical concept of collaborative maritime security, a word that we have been hearing very often. The foundation of this rests on the premise that due to the vastness of oceans, no single state or institution can independently create and maintain maritime security effectively. This underscores the necessity for collaborative approach. I would like to mention that the Indian Ocean faces a bitter reality, that is, a pronounced lack of regional integration. This challenge stems from historical legacies, ideological divides, and perhaps most critically, a pervasive lack of trust amongst nations. Even though the region has received adequate attention, there is still insufficient cooperation within the IOR to address its challenges in the maritime domain. This trajectory could shift if the countries of the Indian Ocean recognize that the solutions to their shared challenges lie within regional cooperation and collaboration. Ladies and gentlemen, as present challenges are diverse and multifaceted, countries are singly unable to ensure their maritime security. In the first place, adequate intelligence and information from variety of sources is a necessity. One has to admit that if challenges in regional maritime domain are to be met, traditional interstate rifts have to be kept aside from contemporary maritime issues. And this is an important point that we should all remember. But we have to be patient and steady. Trust and cooperation cannot be surged, but have to be built and sustained over time through development of increased understanding and forging of international partnerships. This requires choosing reconciliation over rivalry as an antidote for addressing shared challenges. Moreover, out of all spheres of multilateral interactions, it is the maritime arena that offers visible prospects for circumventing rivalries and getting along to work in a cooperative environment, which also brings economic dividends. It may be mentioned that regional states have a deeper understanding of the challenges facing their region, allowing them to more accurately identify and address these issues. Therefore, a region-centric solution to a region-specific problem is likely to be more enduring, sustainable, and effective. Other advantages of region-centric construct include, firstly, the multilateral versus multilateral aspects. Notwithstanding advantages of large multilateral collaborative fora, they have an inherent limitation as they generally dwell on broad-based agenda catering everyone on the table. And there is limited space, if any, for meaningful negotiations and hammering out solutions of core issues. This has promoted the trend of minilaterals, where agenda is substantive and specific. Regional stakeholders have the resources to promptly act, being in their national as well as collective interest. Malacca Straits Patrol is a success story where regional actors cooperated and positively impacted the environment. Next is regional ownership. It entails that regional countries take responsibility for their maritime security. This principle is crucial because extra-regional forces often tend to pursue their strategic interests, which may not align with regional priorities. A region-centric model would allow the regional countries to address specific threats using their own resources and operational philosophy. It does not mean excluding extra-regional forces, which do make positive contributions. But the ownership and primary role must be demonstrated by regional countries. Another is strategic autonomy, which allows regional states to define their own security priorities, leading to creation of trust among regional actors. Region-owned, region-led maritime construct also becomes catalyst in building partnerships among regional countries through information sharing, joint patrolling, exercises, and understanding each other's operational philosophy. This could become a driver for resolving mutual disputes in peaceful manner. Last but not the least, collaboration in capacity building. Regional states have varying scope of naval capabilities, including training and indigenous development. While working under the region-owned, region-led maritime construct, regional navies have an opportunity to build their capacities and improve interoperability. Here I would like to compliment the CMF for wonderful job that they are doing. And of course, Pakistan has been part of the effort for more than 2 decades now. And I had the pleasure and opportunity also to command 150 back in 2009. But I would also like to acknowledge efforts of others, including independent deployers, their contribution in this regard. Pakistan Navy has also been, besides being part of the coalition effort, Pakistan Navy has also been ensuring required surveillance and patrolling to thwart security threats in our EEZ and area of interest. However, to contribute towards peace and stability further, we initiated regular regional maritime security patrol in 2018 along 3 axes, that is North Arabian Sea and Gulf of Oman, Gulf of Aden, and Central Indian Ocean, which contributes towards global efforts of maintaining secure seas. My concluding thoughts, ladies and gentlemen, are that the future holds no lesser challenges than present. Thus, we ought to adopt a cooperative rather than competitive approach towards maritime security at regional as well as international level. Through collaborative approach, by pooling in resources, even the smaller navies can benefit. Security of the region in long term resides in a region-owned, region-led maritime construct, modalities for which will have to be worked out through mutual consultation. Some relevant areas to be considered initially could include enhancement of regional maritime security through information sharing, joint or coordinated patrolling, and capacity building through training and exercises. human assistance and disaster relief, environment protection, and matters related to ocean resources, especially fisheries. This will help create an environment enabling nations to effectively contribute towards secure seas. The beginning could be made with information sharing, and I may mention that Pakistan Navy established a joint maritime information coordination center a decade ago. It is located only about a kilometer from here, and besides coordination with a large number of local entities, has been actively coordinating with various information fusion centers abroad. The JMICC could act as the regional information fusion center and made use of by other countries. The other step, which could be undertaken in early time frame, is joint or coordinated maritime security patrol by willing nations. Ladies and gentlemen, we all unambiguously believe that the oceans are the common heritage of mankind, and navies have a common responsibility to cooperate with each other in securing the maritime domain in our mutual benefit. Participation of friends from the region and beyond in AMAN activities is a sign of hope and source of strength. I wish you success in your togetherness for peace. Thank you very much.
Commodore Jassim, with your permission, I'm going to save time, those 6 seconds of going up and introduce you while sitting down. Commodore Jassim, our next speaker, joined the Royal Navy of Oman in 1989 as an officer cadet and trained in Oman and in the United Kingdom. The highlight of his sea career was to be the commanding officer of 2 ships of the Royal Navy of Oman. He has a number of degrees, both in BA, Naval and Military Science, and MA from National Defense College in the United States of America. He also was awarded a number of decorations, including for long service and good conduct, a medal in 2001, and Britannia Royal Naval College Medal in 2019. Commodore Jassim currently is serving as Director General of Operations and Plans in Oman. Commodore Jassim.
Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Honorable delegates, ambassadors, distinguished guests, senior officers, ladies and gentlemen, assalamu alaikum and good morning to you all. First of all, please allow me to express my heartfelt thanks and sincere gratitude to Pakistan Navy for the kind invitations and the generous hospitality. I think Aman Dialogue 25 speak out itself. There is no doubt that the selected theme for the dialogue, secure seas and prosperous futures, will be the takeaway from this dialogue. I truly expect that discussions in this dialogue, we will be deepen our understanding and raise awarenesses of the current state of the maritime security and the prospects of the future. The scope of my presentations will be as flashed on the screen. As we all know that maritime safety is a critical concern for global trade, environmental protections, and human security. The complexity of modern maritime security threats ranging from piracy and smuggling to illegal fishing and environmental disasters demands a coordinated approach. Maritime fusion centers have emerged as a key institutions that facilitate information sharing, strategic coordinations, and real-time response to maritime risks. These presentations aim to identify various maritime security challenges and explore the role of these centers in enhancing safety at sea, with a particular focus on Oman's maritime security centers and its contribution to regional maritime security. Today's maritime domain facing multiple security challenges that include terrorism, piracy, drugs, and human trafficking, issues that really transcend borders and require a unified response and enhanced cooperations and collaborations among nations. Maritime fusion centers, MFCs, plays a critical role in improving maritime security, safety, and environmental protections. Its main functions is to collect, analyze, and disseminate information related to maritime activities, facilitating coordination response among various stakeholders, including government agencies, law enforcement, and private sectors. Some of the key roles of the maritime fusion centers are included, like information sharing and coordinations. MFCs act as central hubs for information exchange between different maritime stakeholders. For example, coast guards, navies, port authorities, and shipping companies. They ensure timely sharing of operational data and enhance situational awareness. Secondly, they provide real-time monitoring of maritime activities, including vessel movements, weather patterns, and potential threats, i.e. piracy, illegal fishing, drugs trafficking, and etc. This helps authorities stay updated on what's happening in their maritime domains. MFCs also analyze data from multiple sources, such as radars, satellites tracking, automatic identification system, AIS, and vessel trafficking monitoring systems, to identify and assess risks or illegal activities in the maritime environment. They assist in coordinating law enforcement or military response to these threats. This is also achieved by consolidating information from different sources, for example, radars, satellites data, intelligence reports. MFCs are also to conduct deep data analysis to provide actionable insights. This includes detecting anomalies and identifying patterns and generate threat assessments. Operational support for maritime safety. They help also to support maritime safety by tracking vessels and preventing accidents, conducting search and rescue operations, and ensuring compliance with maritime regulations in international conventions. Collaborations with international partners, given the maritime security often involves cross-border cooperations. MFCs may coordinate with international maritime organizations, other countries' maritime agencies, and global security networks to address shared concerns like piracy or smuggling. In environmental protections, they also monitor and support on maritime environmental threats, such as oil spills, illegal dumpings, or hazardous materials spills, ensuring compliance with the environmental laws and facilitating rapid response efforts. MFCs often plays a role in supporting legal and regulatory enforcement by sharing information that helps to enforce international laws and agreements, such as the United Nations Conventions, Law on the Sea, the UNCLOS. Finally, or not limited, training and capacity buildings. They can support the training and capacity buildings of maritime personnel to ensure that the maritime security operations are effectively and compliant with international law and standards. In a sense, a maritime fusion centers is a key component in modern maritime security, offering a comprehensive, coordinated approach to addressing the complex challenges that arise in the global maritime domains. Now I'll give you an overview about the Oman Maritime Security Centers. Oman Maritime Security Centers was commissioned in the year 2018. This Maritime Security Centers manage and leads maritime security operations in Omani maritime zones. Its tasks include protecting seaports, offshore installations, and coast, combating maritime security threats such as illegal immigrations, organized crimes, illegal trades, maritime piracy, pollutions of the marine environment, obstruction of international navigation routes, and maritime tourism. It also actively engaged in the protections of fisheries, the conduct of search and rescue operations, and the provision of assistance to the ships sailing in the Omani territorial waters. In addition, the Maritime Security Centers participates in the collections, analysis, and exchange of information between different operation centers involved in maritime securities. For instance, Maritime Security Centers has also direct link with and coordinations with the following agencies as shown on the slides. And this cooperation actually is in order to enhance maritime domain awarenesses and exchange information and elevates efficiency. In conclusion, I would say all maritime threats and challenges definitely require a unified response and efforts. So close cooperations among navies vital for building a resilient and reliable framework against evolving threats. Finally, I think AMAN 25 dialogue had provided us a great opportunity to exchange views and further explore areas and means of promoting collaborations and cooperations between navies. Ladies and gentlemen, once again, thank you for the excellent endeavors and the memorable events. Wish you all the best and thank you.
Thank you very much, Commodore Jassim. Our next speaker is Mr. Troels Vester. Mr. Troels Vester comes from Denmark and is currently the country representative for the United Nations Office on Drugs and Crime in Pakistan. Mr. Vester brings with him over 2 decades of experience in international development and crime prevention. He began his career in DC in 2002 in Hungary, and over the years has been posted and worked in Vienna, Panama, Indonesia, Myanmar, Sri Lanka, and Bolivia. He has extensive expertise in large-scale initiatives, fostered international cooperation, and mobilized resources for sustainable reform. In Pakistan, he is addressing critical challenges such as drug trafficking, terrorism, cybercrime, and corruption. We welcome Mr. Troels Vester. Thank you.
Assalamu alaikum. A very good morning to you all. So what are we doing here? United Nations Office on Drugs and Crime. What do we have to offer to all of you? We're working with all of you, almost. And we are working on some of the challenges identified by previous speakers, definitely in terms of enhancing and coordinating efforts among you against criminal activity at sea. Can we show my presentation? There we go. Next slide, please. if you're looking at the map, you will see that we have a fairly large presence around the world, and where we are not present, we at least have activities as well. And I know that all of you are coming from somewhere up there on the map. Next, please. And I think other speakers has already mentioned these areas. I think you just mentioned some that wasn't mentioned by others. But cash smuggling, that's a real issue. People are going around the world on vessels and containers with a lot of cash. That's very clear, some with a lot of money. We also do firearms trafficking, and I think for the first one mentioning also we're looking at breaching of UN Security Council resolutions and sanctions. I think that's an important point as well. Next, please. So we work a lot on legislative reviews, especially on what can be done to working better together under the international conventions. We work with SOPs, interagency cooperation, especially in evidence collection. We do maritime law enforcement training courses. We do maritime cooperation, maritime domain awareness, and we help countries to draft MOUs. So it has a lot to do with bringing countries together. And I take this opportunity to thank the Pakistan Navy, because I want to say that. I mean, the fact that the Pakistan Navy can do all of this with all of you really shows the Pakistani Navy's convening power. That's a power in itself that not everybody has, but I think Pakistan Navy has shown they have a strong convening power, because when I look at the countries represented at this meeting, it's fairly impressive, to be honest. It's very impressive. Not sure the UN could do it, but the Pakistani Navy has done it, so congratulations for that. When it comes to the next area of work, we work a lot with cargo. So we have established high-level interdiction units, profiling units around the world, which was what was on my CV before in the Panama Canal. So basically we work with customs, we work with navies, we work with intelligence agencies in terms of high-risk profiling of containers. High risk of what? High risk of any crime within the containers. And as you know, containers around the world has a lot of surprising elements inside the containers. We are seeing lots of rip-off cases where seals are broken and sports bags are being put in with 200 kilos of cocaine. We have seen extra walls in the back of containers with people, weapons inside the containers. And I remember when I started working in Panama, the government told me, there's one way of being PNG'd very fast in this country. We will throw you out. And I said, oh my God, what have I done? And that is if you slow down the trade on the Panama Canal. That is our lifeline. So you cannot slow down any trade. You can work on security, moving the trade. And I remember that in the first 9 months of our program in the Panama Canal, Panama Customs seized more illicit goods that Panama as a country had done the last 10 years. So something we were doing right. But we didn't slow down the canal. And in fact, I had the same message from the government of Jamaica, who has a massive port as well, Kingston. So that's the fine balance that all of us do all the time, is not slowing down the trade. Because if we are too slow, we get trouble. Private sector is screaming at us. So it is about having access to the right tools at the right time and do some serious profiling. And a lot of it is done by open sources. A lot of it is done by using container, information, etc. Moving on, please. So I've not listed everybody we work with, but you see some of the agencies listed up there. This is only examples, and it keeps expanding all the time as our program is expanding. Next, please. So here you see some of the routes we're working with, all of you. The northern route, the Balkan route, the southern route. Please don't take my arrows as this is precise the countries that we're looking at. This is just to show the trends and the routes that we are discussing about. Pakistan has a unique challenge. Pakistan is victim to some of this. A lot of weapons were left in Afghanistan when the Western countries left. I think the value of those weapons is around 10 billion. I hear different figures, but let's, for the sake of argument, calling it 10 billions. That's a lot. And getting that weapons into the wrong hands has proven that Pakistan has a lot of people going across its border from Afghanistan, and we see the link with narco-terrorism, where the drug trafficking is used to buy more weapons and doing, terrorism acts in Pakistan and around. Pakistan has an issue in being a transit country for chemicals. We all know that you cannot create drugs without chemicals. It's very clear. There's also very few weapons of terrorism that you can do without chemicals. So chemicals becomes extremely important. Pakistan is a transit to Afghanistan for these chemicals, and back comes heroin or synthetic drugs. To be very clear for us as UNODC, Drugs and Crime Agency, the heroin trade is pretty stable around the world. What is not stable is the synthetic drugs. And you're all a fine example of that. Most countries are now seeing that shift. Things are going synthetic. Whether that is methamphetamine, we can call it ice, we can call it yaba, whatever we call it. It is a major threat to European countries, to the Northern America. I just came from Bolivia. It's beginning to arrive in South America as well. We also see that some of the arrows, I can alert you to that already now, will change now as well. So my last couple of years in South America, just upon me leaving, we started seeing arrows coming out of South America to this region, to Southeast Asia, the Pacific, South Asia, and that simply has to do with the value of things. So in Bolivia, 1 kilo of cocaine is $1,500, right? Pretty cheap. I can see your eyes now spiraling. That's very cheap. You bring that same cocaine to Australia, the value is $250,000. You tell me that we're not going to see more of these arrows. We will. The European Union arrow is beginning to turn into just not a demand. The European Union is beginning to come as a transit point. There is drug labs within the European Union now. The cocaine paste was crystallized before in Latin America. It still is, but the labs are also now identified in Spain, in Belgium, in Holland. So you have crystallization of cocaine within there. So this changes, everybody needs to be on their toes, especially in South Asia as well. The value of cocaine is high. And if we are looking at the Mexican border getting more and more attention, guess what? You could be on the receiving end in the future, because the cartels will look for new markets, and you could be one. I have a few examples of their success stories here in this region. I have more up there. I do want to talk about the last one, which was an excellent result here in Pakistan, which is 700 kilos of methamphetamine going towards Malaysia. It's a fairly large amount if you're talking about 700 kilos of meth. And this is only what has been found. So if there's any message I want to get through to all of you is that the synthetic drugs is what you will be seeing more and more of. On Thursday or Friday this week, UNODC, we are the secretariat for the Counter-Narcotics Working Group under the Doha process. So we will be launching what is called the Roadmap for Afghanistan and its neighboring countries, many of you are, in terms of how to combat this drug trafficking that we are seeing. So I invite you all to keep an eye out for that, especially our friends from Pakistan. This is very, very important for you, and you're at the seating table as well. So more of that in the future, because it will impact any kind of Indian Ocean trafficking, this region. I'll hold here, and thank you very much again for allowing UNODC to speak at this event. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Mr. Vester. Our last but not least speaker today is from Indonesia. It is a privilege and honor to welcome First Admiral Muhammad Taufik. First Admiral Muhammad Taufik is from Bandung, Indonesia, and is commanding officer of First Sea Battle Group. He received his initial military education in Indonesia, but then did numerous international courses in Singapore and Australia, from where he got a master's in military and defense studies. He has had many operation assignments as a Navy officer on various Indonesian warships, and with extensive scope of operations in all territorial waters of Indonesia. He has been commanding officer of the Fast Patrol 40C PC-40 in 2010 and the KIR Rengkong 622 Patrol Ship Killer Class in 2016. He also has extensive assignment experience as staff, including being strategic planner, planning staff, head of policy assessment and research, and being on the planning board on staff operation Kuarmada in 2017. He also has done a number of overseas assignments in Congo, Korea, Tehran, in Iran. His current position is commanding officer of First Sea Battle Group since July 2023 until now. We welcome First Admiral Muhammad Taufik.
Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamualaikum. Good morning, everyone. Distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen. First, on behalf of our Chief of Navy, Admiral Muhammad Ali, we would like to express my utmost gratitude to Admiral Navid Ashraf and the Pakistan Navy for their warm welcome and for hosting the exercise AMAN 2025 dialogue beautifully. It is a great honor for us to participate in this forum, sharing the Indonesian Navy perspectives on enhancing cooperation towards peace and stability in the Indian Ocean region. Previously, subject matter experts have been delivering many issues concerning global maritime challenges. Since I'm the last speaker for this session, therefore, I would like to speak briefly only on Indonesian Navy perspectives on these subjects. As we know, maritime security is not only a Navy concern, but also the foundation for global economic stability. Any disruptions in the major sea lanes, such as piracy, territorial disputes, terrorism, and other illegal activities, are affecting global supply chains as well as food security. Therefore, securing the seas is a shared responsibility among nations. Indonesia, with over 17,000 islands and 3 crucial straits, we faces both traditional and non-traditional maritime security challenges. Our geopolitical position requires a strong naval presence to ensure stability in the exclusive economic zones, combating illegal activities, and rapid response to HADR crisis. Distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, we are all aware that the Indian Ocean region is currently dealing with significant maritime issues, such as increasing competitiveness among major countries, protracted geopolitical conflicts, and the emergence of modern maritime security threat. The identified key zones which have ongoing crises are the Malacca Strait, the Strait of Hormuz, the Bab el-Mandeb Strait, the Mozambique Channel, and also the 6 and 9 degree channel, which all have a huge substantial impact on the economy, the ecology, humanitarian issues, and security towards other areas globally, which located specifically in the Indo-Pacific region. Next, please. Distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, this slide demonstrates the vicious cycle of maritime insecurity, which shows that a variety of illegal maritime activities are made possible by a weak maritime law enforcement and inadequate coastal welfare, which in turn causes to further degradation of law enforcement and coastal welfare. Therefore, strong regional and international collaboration and coordination among maritime law enforcement agencies, as well as flourishing blue economy are essential in breaking the cycle for safeguarding multinational interests at sea. Distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, by enhancing capabilities in combat operations, maritime law enforcement operations, or maritime interdiction operations, humanitarian assistance and disaster relief operations, as well as international maritime cooperation, the Indonesian Navy works to secure international sea lanes through Indonesian waters in order to carry out certain strategies to deal with those maritime challenges. Furthermore, the Indonesian Navy contributing not only in the development of regional framework for maritime digital integration to promote maritime domain awareness, encouraging defense cooperation and diplomacy in order to establish a resilient region on dealing with threats and disasters worldwide. But also, we're putting all hands in disaster prevention, mitigation, and disaster relief mechanisms. Slide number 5, please. Distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, coordinated maritime patrol and information sharing are essential components of maintaining the maritime domain awareness. MDA refers to the effective understanding of the maritime environment, including the activities, intentions, and capabilities of actors within that environment. During 2024, several coordinated maritime patrol and information sharing are conducted by the Indonesian Navy and the neighboring states. Joint patrols in the Malacca Strait, North Natuna Sea, and the Indian Ocean significantly reduce the number of piracy and illegal activities. By addressing the challenges and leveraging the opportunities, we will be able to enhance our ability to detect, respond to, and preventing maritime security threats. Intelligence sharing between Indonesia Maritime Information Center and Indonesian Navy Command and Control Center with the IFC in Singapore, with the RECAP, with the Indian Ocean Naval Symposium, improves in giving us a real-time maritime threat detection. Next slide, please. Distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, both bilateral and multilateral Navy exercises are indeed playing a significant role in promoting global peaceful diplomatic efforts. These exercises bring together navies from different countries to participate in joint operations, fostering cooperation, trust, and understanding among nations. Along with neighboring and friendly nations, the Indonesian Navy took part in 16 bilateral and 6 multilateral naval exercises in 2024. This serves as evidence of the Indonesian Navy's involvement and commitment in advancing international maritime stability. The cooperative efforts below strengthen naval capabilities while strengthening maritime norms and the rules-based order in the Indo-Pacific. Information sharing and coordinated responses are urgently needed to efficiently address emerging threats. Indonesia's diplomatic engagement in ASEAN, IORA, WPNS, and IONS enhances the regional security and stability. Multilateral exercises such as the AMAN exercise, Komodo exercise we will hold next week, Carrot exercise, RIMPAC exercise, those exercises promote interoperability efforts and continuous interaction to develop mutual understanding at sea. Distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, the Indonesian Navy has taken a number of important stands in countering the dynamic challenges at sea, in which demonstrating our dedication in maintaining the international stability and collaboration. Since the nation's equity strategy provides the foundation for developing regional naval capabilities, the Indonesian Navy places a high value on this matter. Promoting collaboration with extra-regional naval powers is part of this strategy. The Indonesian Navy is committed in strengthening defense cooperation and taking a proactive stance in resolving regional problems. This means expanding diplomatically guided process for handling wide range of issues at sea in our region. The Indonesian Navy also emphasizes the value of information exchange and collaboration in preserving maritime security. It also highlights the development of maritime domain awareness capabilities to establish a more effective network for comprehending maritime operations and any potential hazards in the surrounding region. We also support regional efforts to fight pollution at sea and contribute to global climate change action, but actively supports any programs that encourage sustainable environmental practices and safeguard the marine ecosystem, since it recognizes the relationship between ecological sustainability and maritime security. In accordance with the Southeast Asia Nuclear Weapon Free Zone Agreement, the Indonesian Navy endorses the commitment to abstain from the development, production, acquisition, and/or testing of nuclear weapons. Additionally, we urge to ratify the Comprehensive Nuclear Test Ban Treaty and to respect as well as adhere to this pledge. Distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, it is impossible for one nation to manage the continually evolving maritime security issues on its own. It is critical that nations collaborate across national boundaries. Stability, conflict resolution, and maritime security should be the main priorities. The typical distinction between security users and providers are becoming less obvious as the problems in maritime security become more intricate and interconnected. This demonstrates the value of working together to discover the best solution. Additionally, future security strategies must focus on the prevention rather than reaction, with various considerations. First, strengthening naval interoperability by standardized training, joint missions, and communication protocols that will improve response effectiveness with similar understanding. Secondly, advancing maritime defense diplomacy by engaging beyond military sectors by involving academia, policymakers, and industry leaders. Thirdly, enhancing humanitarian assistance and disaster relief cooperation because climate-induced disasters demand faster and more coordinated naval responses. Then, elevating the AMAN dialogue's role by expanding discussion on emerging threats, policy frameworks, and technological integration in maritime security. Distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, finally, I would like to restate the Indonesian Navy commitment to preserve regional maritime security and peace. First, maritime security is a shared responsibility. No single nation can address all threats alone. Second, strengthening a cross-sector collaboration between navies, academia, and maritime industries is the key. Third, commitment to secure seas, prosperous future requires continuous engagement, trust building, and innovation. We are committed to maintain peace, security, and cooperation in the Indo-Pacific since we are a non-bloc with a free active state policy. Lastly, the success of dialogue should not end with discussion. It should lead to concrete actions that enhance maritime security and stability. That concludes my presentation, and may the God Almighty keep granting us with health and strength so that we can continue to fulfill our responsibilities and prove our affection for and devotion to our nation. Thank you for your kind attention. 1,000 friends, 0 enemy. Together for peace. Wassalamualaikum.
Thank you very much, distinguished speakers, and with their very, very valuable observations and comments representing their domains. We have actually just ended right on the dot, which means we don't have time for questions, but I do understand there will be a stretch break and the speakers are available to answer any questions if they so like. So I thank you all very much, and I hope you found the session as insightful and valuable as I did. Thank you to all the speakers. Thank you.
With this, we came to the end of the third session of AMAN Dialogue. We will now take 10 minutes stretch break and would recommence the proceedings at 11 1900 for Session 4 on Blue Economy.
Ladies and gentlemen, I request you all to please settle down. The session will begin shortly. Ladies and gentlemen, the panelists are requested to please take your seats on the stage. We will now begin the session 4. Ladies and gentlemen, I request you all to please settle down as we are about to begin the session. Ladies and gentlemen, I welcome you all to the fourth session of AMAN Dialogue, which will be focusing on the transformative potential of the blue economy. The blue economy is focused on the responsible use of oceanic resources, fostering opportunities in maritime trade, marine ecosystem preservation, and climate resilience. For Pakistan, a country with more than 1,000-kilometer long coastline, tapping into the blue economy is not just a choice, but a necessity for achieving long-term prosperity and enhancing its regional and global standing. We are honored to have a panel of esteemed speakers today who will bring unparalleled expertise and diverse perspectives on this significant subject. To begin this session, I am pleased to introduce our moderator, Captain Dr. Hassan Daud Butt, retired. Dr. Hassan is currently serving as the Associate Professor at Bahria University and as advisor to several Chinese think tanks and Fellow of Peking University, China. His research areas include globalization, cross-cultural international project management, and Chinese development and governance system. He was the first project director of the China-Pakistan Economic Corridor and was in the CPEC Long-Term Planning Committee. Earlier, he was the CEO of KP Provincial Board of Investment and Trade and Special Economic Zones Authority. He has also served as a naval attaché in Pakistan's embassies in Beijing, China, and Hanoi, Vietnam. Dr. Hassan will now take over the proceedings of the session.
Thank you very much. Ladies and gentlemen, I welcome you all to the fourth session. This session is around blue economy, the economic value, and for the naval officers, I think it's about what you're protecting. So unless you understand what you're protecting and what are your roles as the protectors of the, not just the coastline, but the entire spectrum of blue economy, I think your task becomes challenging. So therefore, today's session, where I have illustrious lineup, I think, from a submariner to a sea aviator to a surface warfare officer, an environmentalist working on sustainability, I think we cannot have a up to speak about blue economy, the challenges, the ecosystem, and the sustainability. I shall be beginning as a speaker and will be highlighting the challenges that Pakistan has in terms of blue economy and also the opportunities that. So, ladies and gentlemen, we are living in an interesting time. And there's an old Chinese curse which says, may you live in interesting times. And when I quote Noam Chomsky about the future, I think everything that we will be predicting about future will have the push of history. And that push will also predict how our future is going to be in terms of sustainability, because the world is undergoing profound changes. Long-established business models are being disrupted and key economic dependencies are rapidly evolving into geopolitical vulnerabilities. Mushahid Saab, sir. Assalamu alaikum. Sir. Yes, sir. The resilient and cost of supply chains and maritime trade is being tested like never before with new opportunities of near-shoring and friendly shoring. So the investment, the trade is moving back to home. And that is some of the challenges that the region, not just Asia, but other regions, especially the developing countries, are facing. But having said that, I think, and I will echo Tim Marshall also, that geography, large population, and connectivity will be key endowments, and I think Pakistan is blessed with all the three. The oceans, estimated asset value of US 24 trillion and an annual value addition of 2.5 trillion each year, offer immense benefits. But as the land-based resources continue to deplete rapidly, there will be increased efforts to further exploit resources. So while we all are pragmatic in our approach and what we have heard thus far about protecting the sea lines of communication and protecting vital resources, we also need to understand the risk and prepare a mitigation plan. Ladies and gentlemen, I believe, and my professor in Peking University used to tell me that, his name was Lin Yifu, that every developing country like Pakistan has the potential to grow dynamically in phases. So it has to be incremental. You cannot become Asian tiger overnight. And therefore must assess the significance of maritime sector and determine its priorities on national needs. And this is the task of all of us sitting here, that side, this side. Blue economy, ladies and gentlemen, has become a pivotal policy discourse. However, financial instability, the one that we're seeing now, post-COVID, and natural calamities have combined to create headwinds, and I think public sector alone cannot take the challenge. So therefore, we need a public-private partnership to be shaped up under the maritime cooperation framework. Ladies and gentlemen, in January 2024, the world fleet reached a carrying capacity of 2.2 billion DWT, 63 million DWT more than the previous year. However, the consequence of mismanagement could include accelerated global warming, depletion of fish stock, disruption of climate stability, water cycle imbalance, and loss of biodiversity. And my colleague, I'm sure she will be speaking about all this when she would come here. But before we talk about Pakistan, we also need to understand how trade and maritime sector are transforming, because they are transforming. The industrial cooperation is knocking at our door and it's banging at our door. And by 2050, ladies and gentlemen, the blue economy will see major growth in coastal tourism, fisheries, aquaculture, and the shipping will double and will grow maybe even fourfold depending on how the land disputes shape. The seabed mining will surge. Sustainable practices are essential to harness these opportunities while protecting maritime ecosystem. We are also in a transformative era where technology and sustainable solutions are taking shape of the way the work are doing. So the future of work is going to be different to what we are perhaps looking at and perhaps what we are teaching in our respective universities and think tanks. I think the artificial intelligence is helping sensor data and helping us make good decisions and informed decisions. The blockchain is helping automate training and building capacity. The satellite technology that we heard yesterday in terms of enhanced maritime surveillance, optimized resources, fishery management, and a host of other things, I think, is also one of the phenomenal change that is taking shape, including robotics, which will perhaps take away jobs of some of our seafarers. And are we prepared for that in terms of our development? And the most important aspect, and I've been speaking about this, is the transformation of globalization towards glocalization, ladies and gentlemen. What I see is that, and I would echo again Tim Marshall in his book, Power of Geography, he said borders will continue to be important in the future, and the mountains, the desert, the jungles, the rivers and seashores of the world will continue to provide convenient frontiers between nations. And my colleague from China are here. I think we've heard stories about Changha. We have heard stories about seafarers coming to this region and talking about regional connectivity. And perhaps we should be talking about the Changhas of the future, the Ibn Battutas of the future who are sitting here, because you are the ones who are looking at transforming the maritime sector of the region. But we also need to understand the challenges in terms of globalization and regional integration. The geopolitical tension, the ongoing conflicts in Russia, Ukraine, Gaza, disrupting trade. And who could have imagined getting out of COVID that all this will happen so early, and the stress that economic trade would come under will be so phenomenal that the way that we talk and the way that we do work will change. I also believe that the trade barrier and protectionism, and we're seeing this host of speeches being made around tariffs, will slow down the global trade. I also believe that the fragmented supply chains towards a localized production is happening, and I spoke about near-shoring and friendly shoring, and that is going to happen. And that's an opportunity, ladies and gentlemen. And how would you, in terms of harnessing that through economic disparities and environmental pressure, would be important. And I always say this, having more risk is not bad, ladies and gentlemen. Not having a risk mitigation plan is bad. So therefore, you should prepare your risk mitigation plan of the challenges that you've all spoken about, from law, which ma'am spoke about, and some of the piracy-related challenges that we have been talking about again and again and again. So our mitigation plan has to be pragmatic, based on technology, and we should build our capacity to address all that. And amongst the talk of protectionism and regionalism, I think what we are seeing is that Asia is integrating. Asia is opening up. So while the West is looking at the global trade in a different way, in Asia we're looking at it in a different way. And I think Mr. Bu, when he said regional maritime integration is not just an opportunity, but an economic necessity, ladies and gentlemen. So therefore, this AMAN exercise or the following AMAN exercise and the takeaways, the deliverables that you all set are very, very important to our, the staple food that we eat every day. The supply chains, the vulnerabilities around those supply chains, ladies and gentlemen. And of course, we are seeing in Asia digital connectivity, green infrastructure, supply chain integration, labor and people mobility. Because I believe now there will be, in Asia I believe, will be no boundaries for knowledge, for people, and for investment. Wherever there will be enabling environment, there will be pull factor to go and invest. And I also believe that one of the, of course, being the first project director for CPEC, I cannot miss a presentation on maritime possibilities without mentioning the maritime Silk Route, ladies and gentlemen. It is transformational. It is transformational because it is bringing global trade and economic connectivity. It is bringing energy and resource connectivity, economic linkages, port development and infrastructure, culture and diplomatic exchange. And I've been part of BRI since its inception, and I've seen it grow in terms of maritime trade. And I was so lucky and happy in the first Belt and Road Forum, where there were about 130 countries, name of Gwadar Port was mentioned. And as Pakistani, I felt so proud about it. And this is the impact ports, maritime sector has in terms of diplomacy, but also in terms of connectivity. So I've proposed an inclusive regional integration model for us to perhaps look at in terms of regional integration, from maritime sector infrastructure development to blue economic cooperation to digital maritime connectivity to sustainable blue energy and to the coastal human development. nothing comes without the human development, ladies and gentlemen. And therefore, the outcomes would be reduced coastal economic disparities, stronger regional maritime trade, socio-economic growth, and inclusive development of Asia, ladies and gentlemen. And with all of this said, I now want to talk about the blue economy of Pakistan. And also would like to explain to you the endowment that we are blessed with. We're right in the center of energy-rich and energy-hungry countries. And therefore, our capacity, our understanding of the maritime sector, the challenges and the opportunities is imperative as we speak. We also need to understand, especially the men in white, and when I look at the picture that I'm seeing right now, it reminds me of Confucius saying that, isn't it a joy to see friends come from afar? And this is what the friends must look at in terms of Pakistan's maritime security and governance, in terms of aquaculture protection, shipbuilding, coastal tourism. I do not have a very good story about coastal tourism, but I hope in days to come, the endowment that we have, the beautiful coastline that we have, we leverage that. And perhaps in your next Aman exercise, when you come, we will take you to some of our exquisite coastal tourism sites. And of course, fishery products. I was lucky, I was in Beijing just a week before, and I was in Urumqi, where I was able to eat in a restaurant called Islamabad, fish from Gwadar. And this is how this transformation is happening, and this is how we are going to work in terms of, and I'm sure Admiral Rao will speak about this in quite detail, but one of the fundamental area and perhaps the stimulus on our blue economy is China-Pakistan Economic Corridor. And when we talk of China-Pakistan Economic Corridor, I would like to highlight that in 2013, when we were articulating the plans of CPEC, one of the fundamental areas that were highlighted was to develop petrochemical, iron and steel and maritime industry in Gwadar, build Gwadar into a base of heavy and chemical industries, incremental development of maritime trade infrastructure, and one area which I keep highlighting is the 1+5 model that was given in the CPEC long-term plan for coastal and maritime training and skill development. And therefore, the importance of Gwadar needs to be understood as a strategic game changer. It is not important how fast you are moving as long as you are moving in the right direction, ladies and gentlemen. And that is what Gwadars offer you. And that is how we have made these plans of Gwadar from where it is to supporting Balochistan province and all the way to supporting Central Asian and South Asian countries. So the plans are there, and even the plans for short, mid, long-term development of a port around the industrial development that Pakistan is looking at, and perhaps the industrial policy that might follow very soon. For the understanding of many, you should also understand that CAREC, the Central Asian Economic Corridor, is also supporting. CAREC 5 is connecting Karachi with Jalalabad, Mazar Sharif, Dushanbe, and CAREC 6 is connecting Gwadar port through Basima and Mustang, and Admiral Iftikhar Rao was instrumental in bringing this forward. So ladies and gentlemen, I will end by giving you a strategic roadmap for maritime sector development. You can only earn if you invest. And you have to invest in policy advocacy and narrative building. You have to invest your time, your effort in tailor-made measures that foster cooperation between countries, including the exercises like Aman. You have to invest in public-private partnership and promote that. And you also have to invest in green industries and smart ports. But likewise, I would like to propose a model our Vice Chief is here. I would like to propose, sir, a consortium of maritime institutions and universities under the umbrella of Aman Exercise. We have a similar for business school under the umbrella of China-Pakistan Economic. And I would also like to propose, sir, that we should build capacity jointly in building capacity of our human resource, especially in maritime law and regulations. And lastly, one of my proposals that I've been drumbeating for almost a decade now is the Maritime Special Economic Zone. We need this, the way that China has done it, the way that Vietnam has done it, and some other countries have done it. And my last recommendation, ladies and gentlemen, let's not repeat in the oceans the mistakes that we did on land, and let's start thinking blue. Thank you very much. Let me change my hat from being a speaker to the moderator, which is of course less challenging. And I think I'm honored to be moderating a session where I have a submariner, I have an aviator, I have an operations branch policy maker, and of course, Dr. Fasih, who is here. But let me first request Vice Admiral Retired Iftikhar Ahmed Rao, because Admiral Iftikhar has been the champion of blue economy for almost more than 3 decades in Pakistan. He's been opening doors, knocking at doors, and telling people how important this sector is. Admiral Iftikhar Rao has been in the maritime sector for over 40 years. He raised PNS Makran at Pasni and its first commanding officer, and then raised Pakistan's PN Coastal Command, and as a flag officer, has diligently worked for the development of Pakistan coast. He was Deputy Chief of Naval Staff Operation and was a member of Gwadar Port Implementation Committee from the start of the port development plan. He remained as the advisor of the government of Pakistan for the development of shipbuilding industry and is considered the brains behind the conception of this industry development. Past 3 decades and more, he's been the champion. He has been advisor to the Royal Saudi Naval Forces too, and in his recent book, Elements of Blue Economy, which is widely circulated, especially amongst those who are interested in blue economy and the maritime sector, he's been discussing and pioneering ideas around. He's a regular speaker at National Defense University, staff colleges, public policy institutions, seminars on maritime sector. Admiral, sir, I would request you to, sir, please. Thank you, sir.
Before you lose it. Assalamu alaikum, ladies and gentlemen. Professor Hassan Dawood has already briefed you about the blue economy and my limited prospects for collaboration in blue economy in the Indian Ocean littorals. So I'll try to restrict myself to this, but during the question answer session or at the end of my talk, in case there is any things that I can elaborate or you want me to do it, I will try to do. First of all, let's seek guidance from the Holy Quran. Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. Allahul ladhi sakhara lakum al-bahra litajri al-fulku bi amrihi wa litabtaghu min fadlihi wa la'allakum tashkurun. It is Allah who has subjected the sea unto you, that the ships may sail therein at His command, and that you may see gain unto yourself by commerce of His bounty, and you may give thanks. Ladies and gentlemen, need not to say that this verse and many others like this, which were also highlighted in the beginning of this session, there are many verses in the Quran and the Holy Books which tell us about the importance of the seas for the mankind,
and direct us to benefit from the rich resources therein and the trade carried over them, like the shipping, etc. And needless to say, in order to optimize all these benefits, we need to have requisite assets, infrastructure, and also awareness. And when we put all these things together, these are what come to be the elements of maritime security, maritime sector. Maritime transport, in that we have seaborne trade, shipping, shipbuilding, ports, waterways, maritime industries, and ocean economic resources. On surface of water, that is energy and tourism, below water, seafood, etc., seabed, minerals, and then you need the maritime forces to provide the conducive environment, safe environment for all this maritime activity to go on smoothly. So that is where all these elements come together. Importance of the seas, ladies and gentlemen. Sea covers 71%, in fact, more than 71% of the globe. It is rich in resources, oil, gas, minerals, seafood, and whatever you think is there in the seas. And it is the cheapest means of transportation. In fact, the shipping on the sea is the main source of globalization of the world economy. And all this is common heritage of mankind. So far, it is not controlled by any group of countries or any country or any institution so far. So territorial waters extend up to 12 nautical miles only. Beyond that, they are all high seas. And sea provides access to all parts of the globe. 90% of the world trade by volume is transported by sea. And sea is the biggest source of fresh water, oxygen, living space, and climate regulator of the planet. So sea, as it covers with 71% or more than 71% of the planet is covered by water, so it is really a blue planet. And the economy related to it should be, or it is now being called as the blue economy. It has tremendous potential for economic growth and well-being of mankind. It is because it is common heritage of mankind, so we must collectively use it judiciously for economic growth, which is sustainable, inclusive, and equitable, while ensuring its environmental protection, preservation, and restoration. Blue economy, ladies and gentlemen, as such, up till now, does not have an agreed upon definition by any means. Various institutions or various people put all these elements that I have mentioned, add some more, some reduce it, some put it more. But just to have one definition from the World Bank, it says, blue economy is the sustainable use of ocean resources for economic growth, improved livelihoods and jobs while preserving the health of ocean ecosystem. Blue economy sectors we have broadly seen already, but the maritime transportation is the biggest. Fishery and aquaculture, this is a big sector which can make most of our countries, especially developing countries, quite sufficient in the food and economics. Marine and coastal tourism, Professor Hassan Dawood also mentioned, we have tremendous opportunity along our coast. But all the countries have various elements of the blue, where this blue maritime, marine and coastal tourism can be developed. Then seabed resources, of course, marine renewable energy, marine biotechnology and resources, marine environment, pollution, and marine ecosystem. All these activities that we say, seabed mining, tourism, etc., shipping, fishing, most of them will end up carrying out pollution out at sea. So we have to be cognizant of that should preserve them and, in fact, try to restore them. Marine spatial planning or integrated coastal zone management is another aspect. So human resource training for various things, they are also, this is very, very important for, especially for the developing countries. So, ocean economy's contribution to the world GDP estimates indicate that the value of the ocean economy ranges between 3 to 6 trillion US dollars per year. This is from UNCTAD. And coming to the Indian Ocean, which is my topic, Indian Ocean is the third largest, covering an area of more than 70 million square kilometers. 17.5% of the world land area, home to 3 billion people, almost 35% of world population, 13.1% of the world trade, and major sea lanes carrying, this is the most important, 2/3 of the world's oil shipment, half of world's container ships, and 1/3 of the world's bulk cargo traffic passes through the Indian Ocean. IOR's economic contribution to the global GDP is, it used to be around 6 to 7% in 80s. It is increasing. 2014, it became 10%. 2017, only 3 years later, it was close to 11, and it was estimated that it will be close to 20%, whether it has reached that or a little short, but it is increasing day by day. Indian Ocean countries are as given here. There are 23 littoral countries, 6 island nations, and 17 island territories. Need for collaboration, we all talked about whether it is security or economic development or whatever. Obviously, collaboration is the key, and only then you can do it. And because it is the common heritage of mankind, so of course we should be collaborating together. No one country has the resources or the capacity to ensure a sustainable and environment-friendly blue economy. So the only option is to collaborate. Developing the blue economy requires collaborative effort. Collaboration is the only way to do it right. Regional collaboration, global collaboration, it has to be all collaboration at various levels, in various sectors, subsectors, or overall. Calls for collaboration in the blue economy. Developing vibrant blue economy needs collaborative effort, UNCTAD. Urgent and coordinated global action is needed by UNDESA for SDG 14, and sustainable management of ocean resources requires collaboration across nation states and across the public-private sectors. Aquaculture and science collaboration is essential for the sustainable blue economy, UNESCO. Building partnerships to promote a sustainable blue economy, SEA. Sustainable Blue Economy Partnership represents 74 partner institutions and 30 countries. That is what the European Commission has done, and they are doing a great job in collaboration. So we must learn from each other and then collaborate, of course. East Asia is doing great in the Asian, in this region, Indian Ocean region. PEMS, Partnership Environment Management for the Seas of the East Asia. This is a very good organization, and they are doing a great job with the help of UNDP and other UN organizations. PEMS adopted the sustainable development strategies for the seas of East Asia. In fact, I propose that similar kind of thing, we can approach the UN organizations to have it for our area also. Brunei Darussalam, that is for the region, then various countries also. Now these 4 countries, Brunei, Darussalam, Indonesia, Malaysia, Philippines, they have made an East Asian growth area for collaboration. Then the 3 countries, Indonesia, Malaysia, and Thailand, growth triangle, joint blue economy strategy. So this collaboration can be multilateral between few countries or between the entire region or the world over. So collaboration can be anything. Asian Blue Economy Framework, the Asian leaders, their declaration on the blue economy adopted in October 21. So there are many, many calls for collaboration. Malaysia started their big, fast results, and 8-step approach. By seeing this, South Africa got interested, and on the similar lines, they had the South Africa Ocean Economic Master Plan and Operation Fakisa programs. We can learn from them. Strengths of regional countries, just briefly, Saudi Arabia, Oman, Iran have strengths in aquaculture, UAE and Oman in ports and ancillary services, South Asia with Bangladesh leading in ship recycling, UAE, Bahrain, Sri Lanka in ship repair and shipbuilding, Bangladesh in small shipbuilding, Pakistan in naval shipbuilding, along with commercial ships. So different countries have different strengths. Regional and international collaboration help address common challenges, and so we should put our strengths together, and strengths will make it stronger when we are together. Togetherness will make it strong. So Aman exercise and Aman dialogue are great success together. But may I propose that along with this Aman dialogue and Aman exercise, we start an Aman with Prosperity Forum, a regional forum, or other partners also, all the willing partners. So an extension of Aman exercise and Aman dialogue, Aman with Prosperity or Peace and Prosperity Forum, whatever you may call it, and they can have various subgroups, fisheries, including aquaculture, shipbuilding, repair, or all the elements of the maritime sector can be put together with these subgroups. And as Aman exercise and dialogue are biennial, the Aman with Prosperity Forum can also meet biennially, but subgroups can meet more often, maybe half-yearly, quarterly, or as deemed appropriate. And maybe Navy can take lead in this, and maybe NEMA can start as the secretariat for this small thing. Thank you very much for this. I've already got a aperitif.
Thank you very much, sir. I think the biggest takeaway from me, sir, is your proposal to put our strengths together, because by staying together is the strength that we are all looking at. And perhaps the Aman Forum for Prosperity, I think it goes without saying that these are the areas which the Admiral have proposed are the ones that we should all be talking about in terms of leveraging the endowment, each country-wise endowment that the Admiral highlighted, because all of us have different blessings and endowments, and we all have to leverage that, not just in a standalone perspective, but also together as one. With this said, I would now invite my next speaker who's come from afar. When I said it's joy to see people coming from afar, we have Rear Admiral Alexander Asano, the Commander Maritime Operation and Protection of the Blue Amazon. Rear Admiral is a native of Sao Paulo, graduating from Brazilian Naval Academy in 1993, ladies and gentlemen. He is a PhD in Naval Sciences from the Brazilian Naval War College and postgraduate degrees in Projects Management from the Federal University of Rio de Janeiro and in Security, Defense and Development Affairs from the Brazilian War College. His sea duties and operational assignments include, to name a few, working at BNS Julio de Noronha, BNS Green Hala, and a carrier Sao Paulo. In his illustrious career, he has also served as an instructor at the Naval Academy, assistant to the Chief of Staff of the Navy, the Commander of the Navy Staff, at the House of Representatives, liaison officer within the Navy's Office of Legislative Affairs. As a flag officer, Admiral served as Chief of Staff of the 9th Naval District Command, stationed in Manaus and responsible to the Western Amazon. He commanded several, as I said, commanded naval task force in the Amazon and served as Chief of Staff in several Joint Forces Command. Admiral, I would request you to please highlight us and educate us on the challenges and the opportunities that we have. Thank you very much.
Chief of Navies and Coast Guards, fellow admirals, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, assalamu alaikum, and good morning to you all. On behalf of the Brazilian Navy Commander, I'd like to thank Admiral Navid Shah, Pakistan Navy, for inviting us to take part in the AMAN exercise and AMAN Dialogue 2025. Well, Brazil is a South American country, as Dr. Hassan said, very far from Pakistan. And the presence of a Brazilian Navy Admiral in Pakistan shows that the Brazilian Navy shares common understanding of what we've been talking here at AMAN Dialogue. So I'm very honored and I'm humbled to be part of the AMAN Dialogue alongside these distinguished speakers. 97%, or more than 97% of our foreign trade in Brazil are carried out by sea. So in 2022, more than $1.4 billion were trade Brazil and Pakistan. So there's no such thing as it's too far, and that doesn't concern me. We're all connected. So I'm glad, and thank you for the opportunity to share some glimpse of my thoughts on ocean governance and blue economy. And for that, we covered that topics. The Brazilian jurisdictional waters cover about 5.7 million square kilometers. And it's a huge area to take care of, and our search and rescue AOR is larger than that. So it's hard, it's difficult for the Brazilian people to truly understand what it means to have such a large area, maritime area. And if we compare it to the green Amazon, to the Amazon, it's even bigger. So a former chief of Navy came up with the idea of comparing those and calling the maritime area as the blue Amazon, so that we should give the Brazilian people some idea of what the wealth they hold in their hands. So that's what we call blue Amazon. Nowadays, that concept evolved, and we included in that area more than 37,000 kilometers of navigable rivers. Dr. Christian Huger talked about the blue acceleration yesterday, and it's happening everywhere, and it's happening also in Brazil. And because of the blue acceleration, our oceans are being increasingly pressured from the various uses of human activities in sea. And we have to identify those different uses. We have to allocate areas in order to minimize the impacts and maximize the benefits, while balancing economic, social, and ecological objectives. And I'll talk about an example that is going on in Brazil right now. That is a really small portion of the coast. It's nearby Rio de Janeiro, Port of Açu. And currently, we have 13 offshore wind farm projects that are applied. And as you can see, those areas overlap. And if it wasn't enough, if we overlay the heat map of our maritime routes, pulling into and pulling out of the Açu port, we'll see that there will be severe impacts if nothing is done. So that is one example, and it's just one part of the things that we have to consider when allocating space. Also, Professor Buger talked about threats, and we share those on a greater or lesser extent. And what we are doing? Well, first of all, we are trying to increase the maritime mindset of Brazilian people. More than 80% of the Brazil population lives within 150 kilometers from the coast. And yet, we insist on giving our backs to the sea. So we have to increase the maritime mindset, and that's a need, so we can profit from the blue economy. And we're carrying out our marine spatial planning, which is the framework for ocean governance. And for such an area as big as the Blue Amazon is it's demanding of virtually unlimited amount of naval assets to take care of that such big area. Assets that we don't have, and to be honest, I think we probably never will. So we were investing on a system to monitor that area. So we call it SISGAS, that what would translate as Blue Amazon Measurement System. It comprises of satellites, optical sensors, radars, and so on. It's a very robust system and very expensive, so we were trying to build it in blocks. And we were also enhancing the maritime security cooperation. We were present at CDF 151 at Bahrain, and next July we will take command for the 4th time. We carry out Gulf of Guinea operations, and we foster international cooperation. And these are some food of thought that I would like to leave with you all as the way ahead. Yesterday, someone asked about the role of navies in blue economy. And I believe that the role of navies is not in blue economy, but in ocean governance. That where lies our role. Enhancing maritime security, supporting the marine spatial planning, contributing to disasters response, promoting international cooperation, and I think lies the inclusive but regional anchored maritime security communities proposed by Admiral Iqbal. And securing and protecting the marine environment. And although there's lacks of norms and still gray areas, I have no doubt that it is us, navies, that will be called to act. So that we have to be prepared. And we will act because it is in our DNA. So I hope that we can meet often, make friendship, build trust, and find a common word based on truth. Thank you. Shukriya.
Thank you very much, Admiral. I think the way that you've highlighted the role of ocean governance and some of the initiatives that your country is taking. And by the way, best of luck with your command for CTF 151, and I'm sure you guys will do wonders. But more importantly, I think some of the initiatives that you're taking in terms of sustainability, and so I really like the idea that you said that, when the risks are similar, the mitigation plan can be similar too. And that's almost echoing the same what Admiral Rao highlighted, that togetherness, and by getting ourselves together, I think we can achieve more wonders and more laurels. And thank you very much on highlighting the regulatory framework that we have. So wonderful. And I think now the stage is set for us to talk about how navies as enablers of economic prosperity can look at the future and the challenges and, of course, the plans. And I think there cannot be a better person than Rear Admiral Datu Baharuddin bin Wan Noor. I hope I've pronounced it correctly. Yeah. One of the best thing that Admiral has is that he was commissioned in 1991, the same year that we got commissioned also. So that was almost, you can be our course mate if you were in Pakistan Navy. But besides that, he's a submariner by trade. Admiral was appointed as the first commanding officer of Royal RMN submarine KD Tun Razak after taking it out. I think it was your commissioning of the submarine that you did in 2009, and as commanding officer of submarine squadron in 2011. His other senior appointments include as commander of the submarine force, the Chief Transformation Officer of the Navy, where he was responsible for the formulation, planning, execution, and overseeing transformation plan for the Royal Malaysian Navy. Admiral has attended various professional courses throughout his career. Amongst them, he's a graduate of U.S. Naval War College, Newport, Rhode Island, as well as the recipient of prestigious Captain Walter B. Woodson Award in 2004. He's also a graduate of Malaysian National Resilience College Class 2021 and a fellow at National Defense University of Malaysia. Throughout his career, he has been honored with several awards, medals, and the list is long, but I will highlight the most prominent one is the French Order of Merit of Military and Civil Deeds, and I think that stands out in what you're doing overseas also. Admiral has been a member of Malaysian Nature Society, a non-profit organization that promotes activities related to protection and conservation of Malaysian national heritage. And I think he would clearly articulate his plans because it's part of the National Plan Committee of Malaysia. It would be an honor to listen to you, sir. Thank you very much.
Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Admiral Navid Ashraf, Chief of the Staff of Pakistan Navy, Chief of Defence Forces, Chief of Navy, and Coast Guard, Head of Coast Guard, distinguished delegate, maritime security practitioners, ladies and gentlemen, Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah, and a very good morning, or afternoon, I should say. Before going any further, allow me to first introduce you to Malaysia. It is by all accounts a maritime nation with its maritime space twice larger than the land area. The nation's 4,675 kilometer coastline borders the Strait of Malacca, the South China Sea, and the Sulu Celebes Sea. Being in the middle of key trade and shipping routes in Southeast Asia, Malaysia is highly dependent on seas to generate economic activities. Trade amounted to over 120% of Malaysia's gross domestic product, and up to 95% of all Malaysian annual trade is seaborne dependent. The importance of maritime trade is new for Malaysia. Historically, the old Malay kingdoms were a maritime-based empire that had always relied on trade, especially transshipment. Additionally, all of Malaysia's known and proven hydrocarbon reserve come from offshore fields. Malaysia is Southeast Asia's second largest producer of oil and natural gas and the world's third largest exporter of liquefied natural gas. Straits of Malacca is the world's second busiest shipping lane. The island in the Sulu Sea, on the other hand, holds some of the best dive sites in the world. The marine environment generates a host of economic activities from almost every aspect of blue economy. These activities generate income, employment, investment, and have tremendous multiplier effect to the nation's economy. Because of its geography, the sea formed the first barrier to any potential incursion to the core of Malaysia's populated areas. As we have experienced from ancient time, the Second Great War, to the more recent incursion into Malaysia, the sea has always been a major part of any such plan. Beneath the wave, Malaysian water hosts a diverse array of shipwrecks, each representing a different era and a story to tell. Ancient shipwrecks dating back centuries provide glimpses into the marine trade networks of the past. Well-known World War-era shipwrecks lies as silent witness to the turbulent times of the 20th century. These sea grave and underwater cultural heritage add to the vibrant mosaic of our history and identity, and they too require protection. Finally, the sea is also a major source of food. It provides an important dietary component for Malaysians, who are among the world's largest fish consumers, consuming an average of about 56.5 kilograms per person annually. As such, ensuring a safe, stable, and healthy marine ecosystem is critical to Malaysia's survival. Now, given the importance of the marine ecosystem to Malaysia and its dependency on the maritime environment, one could assume that it would be obvious for Malaysia to accord appropriate level of attention and possess a comprehensive strategy to deal with any eventualities in her maritime domain. Unfortunately, as with many other developing nations with long history of colonialism, we focus much of our effort to deal with issues in our immediate vicinity, and as a consequence, suffer from what is termed as sea blindness. A nation that lacks understanding of the strategic significance of the sea to national security and prosperity, leading to inadequate attention to potential security or environmental threat, as well as its economic opportunities. To add to the difficulty, perspectives on maritime security vary significantly between different stakeholders, driven by their different priorities and concerns. Extractive industries, such as oil and gas, understand maritime security to be the absence of disruption or threat to their activities within the maritime domain. For environmental activists, maritime security almost often solely about protecting marine ecosystem, whereas governments and its security apparatus, us included, tend to expand the concept to also encompass and prioritize potential threat to their national interests, often at the risk of overlooking the concern of affected communities, such as fishermen. Threats to Malaysia's marine ecosystem varies in terms of scale and severity. Broadly speaking, it is in line with worldwide trends and are common to developing countries in the tropical region. Some of the more prominent challenges are as follows. First one is the destructive fishing practices and overfishing. Over the past 40 years or so, fish stock had been declining in Malaysia and nearly all Southeast Asian countries. largely a result of overfishing, itself a response to rapid increases in demand for food by the region's burgeoning population. Bottom trawling, a method that involved dragging heavy nets along the seafloor, not only captures target species, but also destroy delicate marine habitats like coral reef and seagrass bed. Bycatch, the unintended capture of non-target species, is another significant issue, with millions of sharks, sea turtles, and marine mammals accidentally caught and discarded each year. This is a particularly perverse outcome, as the natural response to declining fish stock is a shift toward more efficient means of increasing fish harvest. Unfortunately, this often means using other even more destructive methods, such as cyanide, dynamite, or other destructive fishing practices to increase the size of catches. These practices imperil and destroy the marine ecosystem, particularly coral reef. They actually accelerate the demise of fish stock and that they so efficiently target in the short term. IUU fishing by foreign and local fishermen further exacerbate the problem, undermining conservation efforts and contributing to the gradual collapse of fish stocks if left unchecked. Second, coastal development and habitat loss. Coastal development, fueled by population growth and urbanization, has led to the destruction of vital marine habitats like mangrove, seagrasses bed, and coral reef. These vital components of marine ecosystem serve as nurseries for countless species, protect shoreline from erosion, and absorb carbon dioxide. Mangrove forests in Malaysia, which support diverse communities of fish, crustaceans, birds, have declined by over 36% in the past 50 years or so, due to unsustainable human use of mangrove and unsustainable rate of natural resource exploitation. Seagrass meadows, home to dugong, sea turtles, and many fish species, are disappearing at a rate of approximately 7% per year, largely due to coastal dredging and population. So development ashore, be it from expanding industrial activity or building tourist-related infrastructure, often result in the same outcome: removal of forest cover. This, in turn, increase the rate at which sediment is deposited into waters to the coastal region, which increasingly block the sunlight which many marine systems depended on. Currently, it is estimated that around 85% of coral reef are threatened in one way or another. Thirdly, climate change and ocean acidification. Ocean acidification is brought primarily by deforestation and burning fossil fuel for energy production, which raise the atmospheric concentration of CO2. As global temperature rise due to increased greenhouse emission, the ocean absorbs more heat and carbon dioxide. So this leads to a warmer and more acidic ocean. If left unchecked, climate change and acidification could lead to the collapse of coral reef and rippling effect throughout the marine food chain. The fourth major threat to our marine ecosystem is pollution and marine debris. Pollution in the form of marine debris are an emerging threat to marine ecosystem in Malaysia. Plastic waste from large items like fishing nets, microplastic can entangle and causes injuries, starvation, and death. Chemical pollutants from agriculture runoff or spills, oil spills, and industrial waste is the most widespread type of pollution, having the most impact on our ocean and its ecosystem. These chemicals, made of nitrogen and phosphate, find their way to soils and rivers and ultimately end up in the ocean. Although nutrients are essential for life to flourish, too much of it tends to trigger harmful algae bloom that deplete oxygen and create dead zones where nothing grows in the ocean. Now, some of the measures that we took to address these challenges that I've just described. As much as the situation seems dire, though, all is not lost. Marine ecosystem in Malaysia is still being protected, restored, and used relatively sustainably while meeting the needs of its population. Okay. And I think none of us here needs reminding of how difficult it is to achieve security in the maritime domain. For Malaysia, it is a monumental challenge that exceeds our capabilities. Perhaps even the collective capabilities of those in our region too. Based on this realization and past experiences, we conclude that the single most important factors necessary to orchestrate an effective maritime security response is collaboration, as has been mentioned time and time again during this forum. Although challenging, we have come to realize that it is not impossible for nations to reach multilateral agreement and can be practically and pragmatically applied on the ground, instead of one that is a sum of politically motivated good intention but difficult to execute. I would attempt to perhaps describe briefly three of the most important examples of maritime security collaboration in our areas. The first one is the Malacca Strait Patrol. It is a set of practical cooperative measures undertaken by Indonesia, Malaysia, Singapore, and Thailand to ensure the security of Straits of Malacca and Singapore. Okay. It comprised Malacca Strait Sea Patrol, which is the initial agreement to enhance the security in the region. Under the Malacca Strait Sea Patrol, participating navies conduct coordinated sea patrol while facilitating the sharing of information between ships and their shore authorities. The second element is Eyes in the Skies, Combined Maritime Air Patrol, or EIS, which focus on the conduct of combined maritime air patrol over the strait to reinforce sea patrols using maritime patrol aircraft from member countries, and each MPA carry a combined mission patrol team comprising a mission commander from the host countries and officers from the participating state. Next is the Malacca Strait Patrol Intelligence Exchange Group, which was established to support the sea and air patrol, leading to the development of information sharing platform for the use by member countries. The Malacca Strait Patrol success in combating piracy and sea robbery can be seen by the Lloyd Joint War Risk Committee decision to drop the classification of Malacca Strait as war risk area. Following the MSP member launch of Sea and Air Patrol in 2004 and 2005 respectively. Although it has its roots in combating piracy or sea robbery, the initiative helps put other blue crime such as IUU, grave robbery and desecration, as well as pollution that have direct impact on the marine ecosystem in check. The second initiative that I wish to highlight is the arrangement known as Trilateral Cooperative Arrangement between Malaysia, Malaysia, Thailand, and the Philippines. Malaysia, Indonesia, and the Philippines, I beg your pardon. The Sulu Sea and Celebes Seas are large bodies of water, and it is located in the eastern part of Southeast Asia. In May 2016, the foreign ministers and defense chiefs of the countries issued a joint statement in which they agreed to increase naval patrol and strengthen communication and information exchange. And they also agreed to use the Malacca Strait Patrol as a model. However, the Trilateral Maritime Patrol was not formally launched until June 2017, and air patrols only began in October 2017. Although the TCA was initially a reactive measure born out of a spate of kidnapping by militant groups, Abu Sayyaf and the likes, in mid-2016, members agree that it has been quite successful. Data cited from official as well as from institution like RECAP have shown some decrease in blue crimes in the area. And the last initiative that is perhaps relevant and more interesting for us is the Coral Triangle Initiative and Coral Reef Fisheries and Food Security for Coral Reef Fisheries and Food Security, or simply CTI. So covering just about a small area of 1.62% of the planet total sea area, this is the epicenter of global marine life, abundance and diversity. Yes, sir. And the Coral Triangle Initiative, interestingly, formed by member countries that focus on the rehabilitation of the coral through civil societies, other government institutions, and with the total absence of military or security apparatus. And they have been successfully conducting their activities with our absence. To summarize, our region is facing a substantial range of maritime security challenges. While piracy and act of terrorism has attracted the most attention, challenge in the realms of maritime security extend well beyond the comfort zone of military or law enforcement. Although maritime security actors often share a common goal of synergizing assets and skill set to efficiently address security threat, this common goal does not always result in cooperation. Most of you can attest that the complex overlap of international and jurisdictional, regional jurisdiction, varying interpretation of the same law and other national interests often impede prospect for collaboration. Consequently, there is a growing realization among security actors in our part of the world that military solution alone is neither proactive nor inclusive. It does not guarantee lasting security and is not even necessarily applicable in all situations. The three examples highlighted just now prove that an inclusive international and regional cooperation tailored to a local content, on the other hand, are more likely to provide the most effective avenue for long-term sustainable solution. Thank you.
Thank you. For me also, you're the best choice to be the member of the Malaysian Nature Society, because the way that you promoting and talking about the ecosystem and the, preserving the natural resources, and I think the common goal that you've highlighted, and it brings us all to the same challenges and opportunities, and whether it's Malacca Strait, whether it's and of course the other challenges that we have. But all of this brings us to sustainability, Dr. Fasia. It's all about preserving environment, sustainability. Whatever we talk about, it has to be now greener, sustainable, and I think inclusive, as Will Rao said. So, ladies and gentlemen, Dr. Fasia is an accomplished environmental scientist based in Islamabad. She completed her PhD in Environmental Sciences from the Institute of Environment, Science and Engineering at the National University of Science and Technology, Islamabad. Currently, she serves as an associate professor, assistant professor and research fellow at the National Institute of Maritime Affairs at Bahria University, Islamabad. Dr. Fasia's research interests are centered around climate change, atmospheric composition, sustainable development, and the green transition. At NEMA, also, she is focusing on green shipping technologies, coastal resilience, and impact of climate change on coastal and maritime ecosystem. In addition to her academic work, Dr. Safdar is also active in raising public awareness on environmental and climate changes issues, making media appearances where she is doing a wonderful work, I must say, and engage a wider audience on these critical topics. So, The stage is ready for you, Dr. Fasih.
Assalamu alaikum and good afternoon, everyone. First of all, I would like to take this opportunity to thank Pakistan Navy and National Institute of Maritime Affairs who gave us this opportunity to gather here and brainstorm some ideas of collaboration on key maritime domain sectors. So I am going to focus on the impacts of climate change on blue economy. And being the last speaker, I was thinking that some aspects of blue economy and climate change have already been discussed. I'm going to flash those and skim through them and focus on some other some statistics on how climate change impacts the blue economy, especially in the Indian Ocean region. So I'm going to start with the brief definition of what blue economy is. According to the World Bank, the blue economy is sustainable use of ocean resources for economic growth, improved livelihoods and jobs, and ocean ecosystem health. And it has many different sectors, from tourism to renewable energy to fishing and shipping. And at the end, it impacts climate change, and climate change impacts the blue economy in return. So we have heard a lot about climate change since yesterday, but how do we know what is climate change, and is climate change real? There's a lot of debate about that in the world. How do we know that climate change is happening? It is because of the data, the long-term data that has been significantly tested and then approved. So this is a map by these European and NASA statistics model agencies, which show the air surface anomaly in January 2025, just the month that has ended. The red areas show the temperature that is above the average of a baseline period of 1991 to 2020. Most of the areas you can see are red. The blue areas are the regions where the surface air temperature was below the normal. So you can see that the surface air temperature has increased to bright red, which means that climate change is playing a part. So, but we are more interested in oceans. So this is the graph that is, so this is the global temperature map. The last 10 most recent years were the warmest on record, with the year 2024 being 1.28% warmer than the pre-industrial times. But moving on to the oceans, this is the graph where you can see the ocean's temperatures, ocean sea surface temperature rising. So the blue dotted line shows the 1971 to 2000 average, and after around 1985, 1990s, you can see that there has been no year where the sea surface temperatures were below the average temperature. So ups and downs are natural variations, but when the temperature has begun to stay above a certain threshold for longer periods of time, we must acknowledge that there is something wrong happening to the seas as well. So what is wrong that is happening in the sea? The effects of climate change are visible. The global sea level has risen by around 0.2 meters since 1880, and this is not only happening because of the melting ice shields. It's also happening because of the temperature of the water rising and expanding. So there is a twofold phenomena that is taking place there. But then we see that the rise in seawater level and the expansion of water is also impacting the occurrence of cyclones, hurricanes, and typhoons. In Pakistan, we are also measuring the sea level rise, which is around 1.1 millimeter per year since 1856, which is around the global average. But since 2007 to around 2016, we have seen an increase of 3.6 millimeter per year. So that is an alarming rate, which needs to be further measured, and a long-term trend can be found out if data is continuously measured. So the impacts of climate change then go on to ocean acidification, because seas have a huge benefit to the mankind. They absorb the carbon dioxide from the atmosphere. They absorb the excess heat from the atmosphere. But as they do so, the waters become acidic, and those acidic waters are not fit for organisms to live. Then there is not only impact on the organisms, there is also an impact on the coastal communities, agriculture, inundation of water, agricultural waters. Then SDGs 11, that is sustainable cities and communities. SDG 13, that is climate action. And SDG 14, that is life below water. And then all those SDGs would deal with the quality of life of the common man or the coastal communities. They're all impacted by climate change. So coral reefs are an important aspect of blue economy because they are almost a baseline of the food chain. Many coral reefs might disappear, and they have already started disappearing. If we reach 1.5 degrees centigrade, there would be a decline of 70 to 90% of coral reefs around the world. And if we reach 2 degrees Celsius rise from the pre-industrial era, there would be the 99% of coral reefs will vanish because the rise in temperature and the rise of carbon dioxide in the atmosphere has a very direct impact on the quality of water and what happens inside the waters. So now I'm going to focus on climate change impacts on blue economy. So there I've tried to gather some statistics about them. First, as we've seen that ocean warming and fisheries, they decline. So fish stocks are declining with a 4.1% reduction in sustainable fisheries productivity due to ocean warming. And that is from the data from the Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change, which has the biggest collection of scientists working on the climate change aspects. Over 50% of marine species in some regions are shifting their distribution due to climate change. And of course, then they're going to affect the fisheries and aquaculture productivity. Ocean acidification and coral bleaching has already affected 50% of the world's coral reefs. They've already died due to ocean warming. And then tourism, the coastal reef tourism, valued at around $36 billion annually, is at risk from bleaching events. And then there is the Great Barrier Reef of the Indian Ocean, that is Maldives and Seychelles, Andaman and Nicobar Islands. It is experiencing widespread coral bleaching, and it has had coral bleaching events in 1998, 2010, and 2016, and with mortality rate of these corals reaching around 90% in some of the areas. The Maldives tourism industry is the backbone of Maldives, and it contributes to 28% of its GDP, faces serious risks as coral reefs degrade, and Seychelles coral reefs lost around 50 to 90% of their coverage in the last 2 decades due to bleaching events. Then we move on to sea level rise, which is going to impact the facilities, port facilities, naval facilities at the ports as well. So around 2050, $1 trillion in coastal infrastructures could be lost due to rising seas and extreme weather events. The small island states, which are already in the global south, they face GDP losses of up to 20% from climate-related ocean change. Then there are extreme weather events, and the whole world might have to face around $10 billion in annual losses due to extreme weather disruptions. The frequency of cyclones in Indian Ocean has increased. Coastal flooding and storm surges cost India's economy around $10 billion annually, and they affect shipping, ports, and all the other coastal facilities. But we must realize that coastal communities are not only negatively impacted. Coastal communities are an interface of between the sea and land, and they are a natural defense against climate change. They have a huge potential to fight back or mitigate mitigate climate change, mitigate as well as adapt to climate change. So this is known as ecosystem-based adaptation, when we protect and restore the ecosystems that provide natural shoreline protection from climate hazards. And ecosystem-based adaptations would include maintaining the wetlands, the mangroves, oyster reefs, and as well as we should also build the resilience of the coastal communities. Marine protected areas can be an important strategy. They can not only provide a shelter, a temporary shelter for the ecosystem, for the very vulnerable ecosystems to survive for some time while the climate is changing. They can adjust in the marine protected area, but they can also capture carbon dioxide and produce oxygen and regulate the climate. So they have a dual role to play in this scenario of climate change. But then at the end, regional cooperation is again very necessary. With regards to the Indian Ocean, there can be many strategies that can be adopted to fight the impacts of climate change. Because climate change, air and pollution know no boundaries, and no one country can work against climate change. So we can establish a joint fisheries monitoring system because the fish stocks have been declining, and the coastal economies of South Asian countries depending on fisheries have been impacted very badly. The Indian Ocean Tuna Commission and SARC Fisheries Network can strengthen their oversight of tuna, shrimp, and other key species. There can be a ban of illegal, unreported, and unregulated fisheries, especially when the countries join hands and patrolling and monitoring is done across the borders. And then there can be joint Coast Guard operations, which can protect the marine reserves from destructive fishing practices. There can be efficient and strengthened disaster preparedness and coastal protection with the use of climate early warning systems, and there can be a shared Indian Ocean data center that can provide real-time monitoring and alerts for cyclones. The countries alone are doing their own work, but together, since the weather currents and the climate impacts are global and regional, they can be efficiently monitored across the boundaries as well. We can establish low carbon port infrastructure, which is a huge gap in the South Asian and the Indian Ocean region. We can implement a joint green shipping pact that can set carbon reduction targets for vessels operating in the Indian Ocean. Ports can impose eco taxes on high emission ships and encourage the use of cleaner fuels, and improve maritime security and trade resilience, as well as coordinated anti-piracy efforts in the Arabian Sea and the Gulf of Aden can protect the blue economy from losses. The last, but the most important, science, technology, and data sharing. Data provision has always been an area which has been ignored and has been area which needs improvement in the global south. So data collection and science and technology applications in the Indian Ocean region can help the science, technology, and the politics sector to work together and move towards a more resilient coastal ecosystem. So that is all. Thank you for your attention. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Dr. Fassia. You've highlighted the clear and present danger. And I think the most important takeaway for me is that when you have these natural calamities and the impact on poverty, security, sustainability sometimes, I think the impact is not regional. It goes across borders. And if I say that, you know, my country and my house is safe, and perhaps it's happening somewhere else, I think that's the biggest fallacy and misconception we have. So that brings us to what the speakers and I had to say. It's now your time. I think we have time for maybe 2 questions, as I've been told, 1 question, as I've been told while the gentleman was moving. So, sir.
بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم والصلاة والسلام على أشرف الأنبياء والمرسلين. اللواء شاعر مدير عام حرس الحدود السعودي. سعادة رئيس الجلسة، السادة الحضور، السلام عليكم ورحمة الله تعالى وبركاته. بداية أود أن أقدم الشكر للأشقاء في باكستان على استضافتهم لهذا التمرين وعلى الجهود الرائعة لتنظيم هذا الحوار. لن أتحدث عن المشكلة، فقد أيضا الشكر موصول السادة المتحدثين سواء اليوم في جلسات حوار اليوم أو جلسات الأمس على الأفكار القيمة اللي طرحوها في جميع هذه المداخلات أثناء الجلسات. أنا لا أتحدث عن المشكلة وإنما سوف أتجه مباشرة إلى الحلول. عفوا. من وجهة نظري هناك حل لم يتم يعني الإشارة إليه، ألا وهو توعية المجتمع البحري. لماذا توعية المجتمع البحري؟ لأنه التوعية هي الأقل كلفة، هي الأسرع في التنفيذ، أيضا هي فرص توافق جميع الدول والتزامها بتنفيذ التوعية. أتصور أنها كبيرة مقارنة بالحلول السابقة. على ماذا نركز في مجال التوعية؟ نركز على جانبين أساسية. الجانب الأول ألا وهو انضباط المجتمع البحري في عدم ممارسة أي أنشطة مخلة بالأمن البحري. الجانب الآخر أنه المجتمع البحري أيضا يكون له دور أو يقوم بدور الرقابة في كشف أي ممارسات أو أنشطة تؤثر على الأمن البحري. هذا فقط مداخلتي حبيت أوضحها. شكرا جزيلا للجميع.
Thank you very much, sir. I think your point endorses the point that was highlighted during this session here. I think it's about collaboration, it's about cooperation, and it's about taking the challenges heads on but together. And it's about togetherness. So thank you very much. Shukran jazilan, sir. And we have one question from there.
Sir, thank you very much for affording me opportunity. I'm Admiral Khalid, a hydrographer and oceanographer, because this is what I will be highlighting. Taking a lead from your last slide, that we should not make those mistakes in the ocean which we have made in the land, and taking the lead from Admiral Roy and Admiral Asano about the marine spatial planning. I was delighted that somehow this topic has started coming up. My suggestion, it's not a question, it's a suggestion, that this marine spatial planning and integrated coastal zone management is not possible without the integration of the marine and maritime data, which is usually not in the simple interoperable format. Till the time we don't bring this data into interoperable format, we will not be able to analyze it, and we will not be able to know exactly that how the impact of one factor is coming on the other factor. So till the time we don't do this thing, the marine spatial planning will not be standing on the sound footings. So my proposal is to all the maritime nations and to Pakistan also, that we must put the establishment of the marine spatial data interface in our maritime policies. What is this MSDI means? This MSDI is a tool by means of which we bring all this marine and maritime data into a single platform, and the world is moving on it, the world is working on it. And similarly, this will be directly hinged to the geography and then to the planning. That's what I would like to propose. Thank you.
I think wonderful, and I would request Admiral Asano to also add a few points to that, sir.
Sir, you're absolutely right. First of all, in Brazil, we are conducting those talks with interministerial committee. So we gather more than 14 to more than a dozen stakeholders and private initiative, and they put on a platform, on a database, their needs for the spatial plan, the spatial plan. And we, as the part of the defense minister, we also put our needs in terms of homeland defense, in terms of areas dedicated to like submarine routes, areas for drills, naval exercises, and of course, we as navies, we don't say which area we're going to use for what, but we do reserve those for our use, and it's all available. It's not secret. It's all available to every participant to know. So that database is a very good initiative, and I think it's you can do the marine spatial planning without those.
Admiral Rao, would you like to say something on the data convergence, because you've been advocating this, that accessibility of data for research, for even shipbuilding, ecosystem convergence. So if you have anything to say, sir.
Admiral Khalid has raised a very valid point, and this is one of the sectors that we are trying to look into while doing this Maritime Task Force various proposals. Integrated coastal zone management or marine space spatial planning. These are policies, and we'll definitely take advice from experts like Khalid and others to take.
Do we have time for one more question? No. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much for addressing, understanding, and I think I will not speak further, because if I speak further, your lunch would get delayed. So thank you very much.
This concludes the fourth session of Aman Dialogue. We will now proceed for lunch and prayer break. Purple card holders are requested to proceed to the purple enclosure. Rest are to proceed to the red enclosure through the back entrance of the auditorium. We will gather here for the next session at 13:30. The guests are requested to refrain from bringing any food items inside the hall.